Welcome to this evening's Crypto Market Outlook Report by Arcade, powered by To Know It. Tonight we're going to look at Bitcoin as well as the rest of the top 20 coins. Now let's jump into Bitcoin's chart and see what we've got for you guys in store today. Looking at the overall market structure for Bitcoin, we can see that the overall trend is still bullish. And we've mapped out key psychological levels and key reaction levels that we found that Bitcoin could react to and that needs to be obviously broken through in order for us to see a bullish continuation, or in this case also another scenario would be the sort of pullback corrective move for the sort of last accumulation before the major run up. Now let's start with the bullish scenario. What we would like to see with Bitcoin is we want to see that price breaks above the $61,250 level, followed by a pullback, which will strengthen our bias for a bullish scenario as long as this higher low formation is above the previous higher low. Now, with that said, we are looking then for a continuation to build our story and to get more insight into how we're going to build up to the 100K plus level. Now, from this higher low formation, we would then want to follow a nice impulse move through to break above the $62,500 level, followed by a pullback, and then targeting a break above the $66,500 level before we see a continuation to our 72,250 level, as well as a continuation higher up. Now, this would be sort of the key sort of watch for the next couple of weeks that we would be interested in looking at for our bullish scenario and building our story around the bullish momentum. Also, keeping in mind that we've seen, based on our pricing and sort of market sort of watching tools, we have seen that there's been an increase in buying from the commercials, the big banks and institutions, adding to their crypto portfolios, as well as, you know, various fundamental informations that we've supplied you with in our weekly market report on the crypto market. Now let's look at the flip side of this bullish scenario, where we always want to try and keep and stay as objective as possible in the market. Now, what we can see currently is price has rejected the $58,000 level with a candle body close below this level. This now potentially indicates to us that we could see sort of price trade back into the $55,000 level, which is a very big key psychological level from a round number perspective, a halfway mark if you would call it that, where we could see price trade into this level before catapulting up. Now, what we need to be mindful of is the fact that should we trade down and break below the 55 level and break the swing low of the $53,000 range or region, we can then strengthen our bias that prices are going to trade much lower. Now, with that said, we would then, from the $53,000 range, we can anticipate a pushback sort of into the $55,000 level before seeing a continuation down into the 50 as well as the $47,500 level, which is one of the key sort of ranges that we are looking to add to our positions for, you know, a continuation of the bullish structure. Now, also keeping in mind, like we've said in previous reports and market outlooks, we would like to see Bitcoin respect the $40,000 sort of region, which will be sort of situating around this consolidation here. So as long as price respects this zone, we can expect a nice bullish run upwards. Now, keeping in mind as well that whatever Bitcoin does affects the altcoins and the rest of the crypto market. Now, what that means is the bigger the retracement on Bitcoin, the bigger the retracement on the alts. So if we're going to see, let's say, call it a 10% retracement in Bitcoin, we can expect a 5 to 10% potentially maybe on alts as a deeper retracement. Generally, what we've seen in the past and based on our sort of pricing models and data is that whatever Bitcoin retraces, you can expect alts to retrace an average of 15 to 20% more. So keep that in mind as we go into the rest of the altcoins. Right, let's have a look at Ethereum now. So we've mapped out two scenarios for you guys. One being the bullish scenario, the second being a corrective scenario where we will see a potential pullback before continuation to the upside. So let's look at the bullish scenario first. We can see at the current price formation, there is 3 bullish candles at the current price action. Now, what we would like to see is a break above the $4,550 level, followed by a pullback that will strengthen our bias for a bullish scenario. This would then need to be followed up with another break above the $5,000 level with a slight correction either at the $5,000 level or even slightly below before seeing a bullish continuation. As we can see from past data and history with Ethereum, we can see that Ethereum likes to react to the sort of round numbers, the 4,000, 5,000, the $500 levels or intervals. Now, what we can see for sort of future pricing is that should this bias hold, we could see Ethereum head up into the sort of $7,000, $8,000 or even $10,000 pricing for the near sort of future, whether it be closer to the end of this year or in the first quarter of next year. Now let's have a look at the sort of corrective move that we could anticipate, as we are always trying to be objective in the market. Now, how do we determine this potential move down for a retracement? Now, what we would want to see is that if price fails to break above the $4,550 level, followed by a nice push below the sort of previous consolidation, that would strengthen our bias on that the market is going to go into a corrective move and that prices wants to move lower because of price inefficiency to the left side, that they would like to balance pricing and to grab some liquidity to gain some momentum for the next bull run in Ethereum to the upside. Now, what we want to see is price sort of break down after rejecting the $4,550 level through the $4,000 level with a corrective sort of pullback into the $4,000 region, followed by a continuation sort of through the $3,500 mark. Then we'll see a potential pullback and a continuation into the $2,600 price region. Now, what's important to note is that we do not want to see price trade below the $2,600 level, because this is our optimal sort of level of support. So we would want to see, for the very least, this being the last sort of retracement before the bullish run up. And that would be our take on Ethereum, as well as what we've done with our pricing and setup for our analysis. Now let's look at BNB. Now, Binance Coin has been quite a good gainer in the past couple of years, making some good gains for the long-term holders, which has been fantastic. And we could see some price movements as high as maybe the $1,000 price points. But that is all dependent on mass adoption and the sort of broader market and how they will adopt and use this utility coin for the long term. Now, looking at the current pricing model, we can see that overall Binance Coin has started to become quite bullish again, which is nice to see. Now, the first sort of a bullish scenario or range that we are going to look at is the $650 price sort of a region or range. We would want to see price break above this level with a clear candle close above this level, followed by a pullback into the $650 range or slightly below, as long as it doesn't break further down below to invalidate this bullish move up. Now from the $650 range, we would want to see a push up over the $700 price range, followed by a pullback and a continuation up. Now what you can see in our pricing sort of highlights with the ranges and the zones is you can see that Binance coin likes to move in sort of $50 increments. Now we can see prices go, as mentioned before, as high as potentially $1,000. This will all be dependent on what Bitcoin does and how strong Binance's adoption is in the broader sort of market to obviously strengthen that continuation. The other scenario that we could also see is a sort of pullback and retracement, which is normal in the market as the market moves in impulse and corrective waves. Now, what we would want to see in order to confirm that we are first going down before we're going up in the bullish scenario is we want to see that price fails to break the $650 price point or region and form a break to the downside, taking out these previous lows, followed by a continuation further down, sort of reacting to the 500, the 450, and potentially even as low as the $400 level as a last sort of gain of momentum and grab of liquidity before we see a continuation to the upside. So those will be the two scenarios that we foresee for Binance coin. Let's have a look at what Solana projects have been doing. Now currently we can see that we've mapped out certain key levels again, the 175, the 150, the 125 to the lower end of the spectrum of this trading range. We've also noted for you guys the 250, 275, 300, 325, as well as the 375 ranges. Now, the reason why we've mapped this out again is because we've looked at past data and we looked at how prices for Solana has reacted in these zones. And we found that these were quite significant in the way that Solana reacts to these sort of numbers and zones and price points. Now we've got two scenarios again, as we are always trying to be as objective as possible in the market, and we always try and see both sides of the coin. The first scenario, which would be a bullish scenario, we would want to see price break above the $250 price point, followed by a correction either into the $250 range or slightly below. This is all dependent on once we've got a candle close above or below this level. Now, should we get a candle close on this level or range or above, we can expect a bullish continuation to the upside, followed by a break above the $275 range, as well as a pullback, and then a continuation into the higher price point as we gear up to the $500 and $550 price points that we've mapped out for sort of longer term. Now, the other scenario that we've got here is a corrective or a slightly bearish scenario. Now, how we will confirm this sort of corrective move to fill in the price inefficiency, grab of liquidity, or to come back down for institutions to grab the unfulfilled orders, we would want to see price fail to break above and close below the $250 region or range. From there, we would want to see a breakdown past the previous higher lows, the previous swing lows, down into the sort of $175 region, followed by a slight pullback. And again, this could be either slightly above the $175 or below or at the $175 price point. Then from there, we can safely anticipate a push down to break the previous or the newly formed lower low to form and strengthen our bias on a continuation for lower pricing, where we can buy Solana at a discounted price. So, and this could be the last time we see these prices, although there is some inefficiencies lower down, but this will only be relevant once we see a proper breakdown in Bitcoin's market structure. And at the current point in time, Bitcoin's market structure is still overall quite bullish, as we see more and more commercials buying into the crypto space. So that would be Solana. Let's have a look at ADA or Cardano. Now, Cardano has had quite a nice sort of corrective deep retracement into the pricing. We've noticed that we've taken out a previous high at the sort of $2.40 level, where we've now formed a new high or all-time high, as some would call it, at the sort of $3 price range. Now, again, we've got two price scenarios or playouts for the mapping of how price will react to the current sort of market, where we can anticipate the certain key moves for how we can add to our positions, and where we could potentially look for taking out some profits out of the market. Now, the first scenario, looking at the bullish scenario, we would want to see a strong push up above the $2 range. With that, followed by a sort of correction or pullback before we see a break above the key significant level of $2.37 in that region, where we would follow that with a corrective move or pullback into a continuation as we work through sort of all the resistance that's been built up in this sort of swing high formation that we have here, to see if we can continue to take out and form new all-time highs. The other scenario we have is a bearish scenario, where if price fails to break the $2 price point, we would expect a retracement below the $1.60 level, and should price fail to break above the $160 price point at this time and close below the $160 price point, we can anticipate prices to move down into the $1.20 as a key sort of zone of interest and support, or as a last line of defense, the $1. Should we break below the $1, we can anticipate prices to go down quite fast into sort of the much lower sort of 50 cents region or lower. But based on obviously the technology behind Cardano, I don't think that's highly likely that prices will retrace that low. Unless Bitcoin has a massive deep retracement, then we know that altcoins will retrace 15 to 20% more than whatever Bitcoin's retracement would be. But if we are getting into these regions of between $1.60 and $1, this would be a fantastic opportunity to buy and add to your positions, as we can see that there is a lot of consolidation and a lot of interest in these regions where a lot of people have bought in the past, and I'm sure these people that have bought, or these institutions and big money, they will definitely add to their positions and buy again before taking profits at the higher levels that we've mapped out. That would be Cardano. Let's have a look at what XRP is currently doing in the market. Now, what we can see on XRP, with all the news and the SEC court case and all of that that's been happening, we can see that there's been quite a lot of retracements on XRP in the past, from its new all-time high that was sitting around the $1.9, almost $2 price point. We've seen prices trying to break out again above, but failing to do so, and then obviously trying to push up again, but failing again to do this, and sort of gaining this sort of consolidation area that we are seeing in this region, which could be quite interesting going forward, to see as sort of a zone of support for future pricing. Now, let's have a look at the two scenarios we've mapped out for you guys this evening to see where prices can potentially go. Now, the first key level in a bullish scenario that we are looking at for price to break above is the $1.37 sort of range, where we need to see a candle close above this level, followed by a pullback that forms a new higher low formation to strengthen our bias for continuation to the upside. The next level will be the $1.50 level, followed by the $1.62 level or range, as well as $1.87 range, and then following to see if we can break the $2 price point as we head up towards the sort of $5 to $8 price point that we've got mapped out for our future sort of pricing targets and TPs. Now, looking at the bearish scenario for XRP, we would anticipate a failed break above the $1.37 range, followed by a nice strong push down below the $1 into sort of the 87 cents range. From there, we would want to see a pullback either into the $1 price point or lower, followed by a continuation where we could find some support at the 75 cents range, which we've seen in the past. There's been quite a bit of support around this region, but we could also see prices trade down as low as 50 cents. But these lower price points I would only see as valid if Bitcoin has a major retracement or a major corrective move into sort of much lower pricing. That will then pull XRP down into these key levels before we see a continuation or a push up into sort of previously mentioned the $3.5 to $8 for XRP potentially for the future. Moving on to DOT, we can see that DOT likes to react to sort of again around and sort of mid-level numbers. So looking at the $35, $30, $40. We can also see some quarterly levels where price has reacted in the past, like the $42.50, $45.50, which should actually be $47.50. Apologies for that. So let's have a look at the two scenarios as we look at the sort of overview of DOT. We can see that DOT has had a nice sort of retracement, and we can see some clear rejection sort of off this $35 region. Now, with the current sort of price formation, we can see that there's still a strong push up, keeping in mind we've still got 5 hours and 50 minutes essentially left of today or this evening. We would want to see a strong push and break above the $40 or even the $42.50 before seeing a slight pullback into the $40 or slightly just below $40 before seeing a bigger continuation to strengthen our bias for the bullish run into the sort of higher double digits as we gear up to sort of the $80 and $100 sort of price targets that we've got mapped out in our pricing models for the sort of later sort of future. Now, this could all be dependent on how and what the market does and what sort of releases comes out, as well as how Bitcoin will react in December, as we anticipate a big push for cryptos in December. Looking at the bearish scenario, or the sort of corrective scenario, if I would put it that way, because we know where crypto is going long term, we don't see these bearish or pullback scenarios as negative. We only see it as opportunities to add more to our position. Now, what we would want to see is a fail break above the $40 level, where we can anticipate a push down, breaking the $35 level, as we've noted earlier with these sort of wick rejections here, and then a slight pullback into a continuation into the $30 as well as $25, which has formed key sort of zones of interest around various consolidations in the past price action. Now we could see price trade down again lower into sort of the $20 mark, but this again, we would only look at these levels if Bitcoin has a deeper retracement. So if we do see this before Bitcoin does a major retracement, that will only mean one thing. The institutions has pushed price down purely because they want to buy in at better pricing and add to their positions, which will strengthen our bias once again for a strong bullish move to the upside. So that would be our scenarios and outlook for DOT at this point in time. Keeping in mind that obviously with the various technologies and projects that DOT is trying to secure and stable their projects and the value of their projects to, be able to sort of withstand certain sort of bearish scenarios. I think they've done quite a good job in sort of trying to stabilize that, but there will always be a bit of volatility and sort of spread for price to move up or down. You can never really completely secure these projects unless they are sort of stable coins that are flat at sort of the $1, €1, £1 sort of level. Let's move on to Doge. Now Doge has had quite a sort of nice sort of corrective move, quite low down as we're sitting currently at the sort of 21 cents level. Now what we've seen is I've mapped out this sort of trend line for you guys to see this sort of triangle formation here. But I've mapped out some dollar signs here because there's liquidity to the upside. There's a reason why institutions and the commercials want to push price higher, because there's money to be made here. So once we've broken above sort of this trend line and broken above this 30 cents level, we would like to see a sort of pullback either to retest this trend line or sort of the 30 cents level before seeing a continuation into our key sort of pricing levels as targets to strengthen our bullish bias for Doge to potentially come back one day and take out the all-time high, which is only sitting at like 73 cents. So it's totally doable for this coin if there's enough buying and momentum for this project to gain those price levels again. Not necessarily from a fundamentals point of view or technology point of view, but just purely from a tradable instrument, there's still potential to make some money out of this. Now, the other key scenario, the bearish scenario that we need to be very mindful of, looking at the fundamentals of Doge and looking at, whether this would be a good or bad investment, we would need to be very mindful. Should price fail to break above this trend line or even the 30 cents price range, once we've got a close below either these two zones or levels, we need to anticipate that we could see a potential push below the 16 cents level. Now, one thing I would like to highlight is, should we break below the 16 cents level, we need to be very careful and think very wisely. Should we still be holding on to this coin blindly? Because what we can see with this strong impulse move here is there is not much resistance here that will hold this level apart from this consolidation here and these higher low formations here that's been sort of supporting this structure. So we need to be very mindful that should we break the $16 level and close below this, that we need to strongly consider getting out. Unless you are going to be brave and you're going to be holding for the hopes that it might go higher, that would be up to you in this scenario. That's our take on Doge. Let's have a look at what we've got with Avalanche. Now, Avalanche is one of the projects that's been in the media around sort of these new developments in the metaverse. What we can also see is that Avalanche has had quite a strong push sort of throughout the sort of midway point of the year, pushing up into sort of the $145 to $150 region. Now, if we are to expect a continuation to the upside, we would like to see price break above the $150 price point, followed by a pullback that forms a higher low or a new higher low before seeing a continuation to the upside, breaking through the 175 and the $200 price point. Now, we've obviously got some higher price points, as we can see, 225 and above levels. However, we would want to see how price reacts in these respective regions once price gets to these key levels. The other scenario that we need to be mindful of and that we could anticipate is Avalanche has not had a proper sort of deep retracement like we know the crypto market is well known for, where we could easily see a 50 to 80 or 100% retracement. Now, looking at how Avalanche has reacted and how it fills its price inefficiency with these various wicks that we've seen in the pricing, in the market structure of the sort of price action formation, we could also see a bearish scenario where price can fail to break the $150 region and then start trading down, breaking the previous higher low here and breaking below the $100 price point. Should we break below the psychological level of $100, we can anticipate price to look for to fill price inefficiency throughout sort of various candle formations before finding a form of support or a level of where the market feels that the project is really undervalued now and that price is now ready to move up into the sort of higher price range, breaking the previous highlighted levels. This would all depend on as well on what Bitcoin does and how Bitcoin will react and what the retracement scale will be on Bitcoin that will determine these levels. We've highlighted the key significant ranges that we've seen price reacts and form support at with Avalanche. So we think that these levels would be really key optimal buying opportunities should price move lower into these sort of regions. Moving on to the famous SHIB coin. So what we can see on the daily chart is we can see the sort of falling wedge on SHIB. We've seen that in the last 2 days we've broken out of the triangle and we failed to break this sort of 5,000 level, if I can round it off like that. And we can currently see that we're forming a wick rejection of this level. Now this wick rejection could indicate to us that prices wanted to move up higher but failed to do so because of selling pressure in this sort of region of consolidation and is now pushing back down to retest this sort of trend line before seeing a continuation or a break above the 5,000 level, followed by a slight pullback or correction before we see a continuation to take out the previous all-time high and hopefully break this 9,000 level. So that would be the bullish scenario or the ideal sort of textbook bullish scenario that we would anticipate for SHIB. The other scenario that we could see, seeing as prices moved sort of higher but failed to break clearly above the 5,000 level, is for price to continue sort of down and come down to take out all this liquidity and price inefficiency created by this major impulse move. And we could see, as we can see, this clear consolidation here. We could see price find support here after taking out these sort of early adopters that were entering in this region, expecting price to first go up. So a typical sort of institutional level to take out these traders and investors, grabbing this liquidity before moving prices higher. Now, this is a very interesting move at this current point in time, and it will be interesting to see how price will form in the next few days as we progress throughout the week. Let's have a look at Crypto.com coin. Now, Crypto.com has been in the news quite a bit with various pay-per-view sports like UFC. We've seen it in the soccer. We've seen it in various other sports, promoting the crypto community as such and growing sort of mass awareness around crypto, which has been really phenomenal to see on sort of the average sort of TV show and in some of the sort of commercials or reviews on certain or replays on certain sport events. Now, what we anticipate here that we can see on the current structure, seeing as it had such a big run up, we are seeing some exhaustion here with a strong push by commercials selling off to obviously bring prices down lower to add to their positions. So a taking of profit here at these highs, pushing prices down lower for optimal buy entries. Now, if we look at the sort of bearish scenario first in this instance, what we want to see is price to fail to break above the 75 cents level. With that followed, we need to break below sort of this swing low here. And we can see that once it closes below this level, there's very little stopping it into sort of this consolidation region that we've got here. So what we can anticipate is quite a strong move down into sort of this 37 cents move before we can see a continuation to the upside. Again, as there's quite a bit of mass adoption currently in the crypto space, and with more and more people globally converting to Crypto.com as their bank, especially in countries like Canada and that, I don't think we'll see a major correction down. But again, this will all be dependent on how Bitcoin reacts, and when Bitcoin has its deep correction, that could pull this down as people gets driven by fear and greed in the market, and they would exit their positions and sell and put this cash that they've invested into some form of stable coin. Now let's have a look at the bullish scenario. Now the bullish scenario, we would want to see price break above this 75 cents or this 80 to 90 cents level, forming a slight pullback before we see a move up higher into sort of breaking above the $1 level, followed by a correction as well as a continuation as the coin grows value and the utility of the coin becomes more popular and mass adopted. That would be our take for Crypto.com this week, or CRO as we know it. And as mentioned, we could see price move into sort of higher levels of $1.50 to the $2 region for the near future. Looking at Luna. Now Luna has had quite a nice strong push in the last 3 days, and what we would want to see is that we want to see price break above the $55 level to strengthen our bullish sort of continuation in market structure on this coin. Now currently we see that price traded into the $60 region and found some resistance at this level. So what we would like to see is a solid candle close above the $55 region before a slight pullback or corrective move, and then forming a continuation, breaking above the $65 level as we get up to the $70 to $100 formation as a bullish scenario for Luna. Now, looking at the bearish scenario, should we fail to break above this $50 level with a proper or full body candle body close above this level, we can anticipate price to sort of form, once we've seen a close below this level, form a continuation to sort of the $40 price region with a pullback into a new lower high formation, which will then strengthen our bearish sort of corrective move, where we can anticipate price move and react to the $30 to $25 or even the $20 price point for Luna. Now again, I would like to highlight that this would only be relevant should Bitcoin form a deep retracement in the near future, as the altcoins generally retraces 15 to 20% more than what Bitcoin would retrace. So if Bitcoin retraces 30%, you can anticipate maybe 45 to even a 50% retracement in various cryptos, and in some case a little bit more, in some case a little bit less, but that's sort of the general sort of outlook that we've seen based on our studies in the past 4 years of the crypto market, with looking at various retracement levels and ranges, etc., etc. Now let's move on to wrap Bitcoin. And let's go through the charts. Now, one thing that I would like to point out, which we found was quite interesting, if you look at sort of the left side of the chart, you can see these massive wicks to the upside as well as the downside. Now, this could be a key indicator to follow what Bitcoin will be doing going forward. Looking at these wicks this wick to the downside, what this means is this is typically a liquidity grab of all the stop losses that's been resting around sort of this range here of $30,000. And we could also see this as a balancing of the inefficiency in the price between supply and demand. Now, I'll get back to the wicks to the upside a little bit later. So first, let's have a look at the two possible scenarios for wrapped Bitcoin as we follow Bitcoin's movements. So what we've mapped out for you once again, and as you'll see, it's it's actually exactly to what obviously the Bitcoin price movements is, and we're going to follow a similar scenario compared to obviously how Bitcoin moves. So what we want to see in a bullish scenario for bullish continuation is we want to see once again a break above the $61,250 level, followed by a break above the $62,500 level with a pullback or correction, continuing to take out the $66,500 level before seeing a continuation into the $70,000 as well as $88,000 ranges that we've got mapped out as we continue into the $104,000 and $125,000 range. So that would be our sort of short-term scenario for wrapped Bitcoin as well as Bitcoin for this week's outlook. The second scenario that we want to look at, because keep in mind we do want to always have an objective approach to ensure that we are not too biased in the market and that we've not missed anything that is important in the market. Now, looking at the current price situation, we can see there's a clear rejection of the $58,000 level with a candle busy potentially closing below the $58,000 level. Now, what that means is should we close below this $58,000 level, we can expect prices to trade down lower back into the $55,000 level and potentially, move up from there, or what we'll see is a break below the 55,000 key psychological level to take out sort of this range below this swing low of $53,000. That would then signal a continuation to the downside, where we could potentially push back into the $55,000 level before heading to the $50,000, as well as key level or range, which is around this $47,500 price point. Now, keeping in mind with that $47,500 level, we want to see price start, moving and breaking structure to the upside before seeing a continuation. However, depending on what Bitcoin's retracement will look like, we could also expect a slightly lower sort of price reversal closer to the $40,000 level, which is our key level that we need to hold before we see a complete breakdown to the downside. So we want to be mindful of these two levels as we've lined it out in the report. So that would be sort of our key last line of defense scenario for Bitcoin as well as wrapped Bitcoin. Now, moving on to the next one in our list, we can have a look at Litecoin. So again, with Litecoin, we've got obviously two scenarios that we've mapped out for you guys to see what price is going to do going forward. Now, we've mapped out key psychological levels as well as quarterly levels where price has found support and resistance in the past, based off of the price action and the pricing models. Now, looking at the current price, we can see that there's a slight bullish move. We are seeing, however, that price is failing or struggling to break above the $212.50 level. So what we would like to see in a bullish scenario is that we've got some nice big impulse moves to the upside, and we are respecting the previous higher lows. We want to see a break above the $212.50 level with a pullback to see a continuation to the upside. The next key level for us to sort of break above, retest and continue up would be the $250 level. Now we can see this massive impulse move to the downside here, this clean price action, which means that there will be very little resistance at this point. So we could definitely see a push up to this level, slightly above with a pullback and potentially a continuation to the upside. Now, looking at the flip side of this scenario, and also because we are seeing a rejection of this $212.50 level, also confirming that this is a key sort of zone that we are needing to watch as we look at what the market will do this week. Now, looking at this, what we can anticipate as well is if price fails to break above this level and we see a candle close below this range or region, we can anticipate a push further down. Now, this push down, in order to validate that it's going to continue lower, needs to break below this swing low here. And once we've confirmed a break and a candle close below this level, we can confirm that the next move will be a pullback or corrective move before seeing a continuation down. Now, again, we've mapped out key levels for you guys. The 187.50 level, the 175 level, as well as the 137.50 as an extreme level. Keeping in mind that these lower levels will only happen if there's a major correction in Bitcoin. So, and this is key levels that we could add to our position should we see price hitting these points of entries or points of interest before we can obviously, accumulate the last bit of orders for our positions before we see a nice strong push up into the 300, 350, 425, 475, up to about $600 for the sort of short-term view for early next year. Keeping in mind this is all dependent on how Bitcoin will move. That will affect how the alts will perform. Moving on to Uniswap. Now Uniswap, we've seen in the last couple of months has had a little bit of a choppy scenario, bit of accumulation, which will be an interesting formation for sort of the future to see how price will react from and away from these sort of levels or this consolidation. We've got two scenarios here again for you guys to try and keep the approach as objective as possible so that you guys can make good sound decisions when adding to your positions and when to take sort of profits in certain regions or ranges as we call them. Now what we want to see for a bullish scenario firstly is we need to see a break above this $23 to $20 $23 to $25 region that we want to see a break above with a potential retest or a slight pullback wherever that would be once price formation has formed and we see a candle close above this level. That will confirm a continuation to the upside where we would then follow this sort of similar pattern of a break above the key zones with a pullback and then a continuation, and that pattern basically rinse and repeat as we see bullish momentum. Now we can obviously see some key reversals in sort of the $35 to $36 region, which would be just a normal correction as long as we obviously stay above these key levels. Now looking at sort of the pullback or the reaccumulation sort of corrective move, we want to see that should price close below the $23 region, this would strengthen our opinion or view that the market could now potentially move lower. Now once we have this candle close confirmation to the upside here, it's very important that price needs to follow through and break below this swing low here, and we need to see a candle body close below this sort of region to confirm that this in fact is now a reversal for the institutions and commercials to come and fill in some price inefficiencies in the lower levels to obviously add to their position before we see a move to the upside. Because as we know, in order for the market to go up, it first has to go down to grab obviously momentum, to grab liquidity, to grab unfulfilled orders, and so on. Same with, you know, going up. The reverse rule applies for the up move. In order for the market to go down, it first has to go up, take profit, and move further down. Now moving on to MATIC. So what we can see with MATIC is we currently have broken above the $1.87 price range. Now it's important for us to make sure that we identify a solid candle body close above this level. Should we fail to break above this with a candle body close, that is not to say that it won't continue up, but it's a stronger possibility that prices can go up if there's a solid candle body close above that level. So, and then here's a perfect example. We can see this level. If we take this level here, we can see that that would give us a good indication. We had a solid candle body close above this level. Price came back, filled some price inefficiency, and then impulsed back up. That's what we want to see in a similar scenario here. So what we want to see, once again, just going over the bullish momentum, we want to see price break with a candle body close above this level, followed by a pullback, and then a continuation to sort of take out the targets above. As we can see, we've mapped them out nicely for you guys in the report, and that would be the key regions where we want to see price react off of or from those levels. Now looking to the downside, should we see any downside potential, what we want to see to confirm that we are first going down would be a candle body So price fails to break the $1.87. It forms a candle close below this level and then forms a continuation to the downside. Keeping in mind, in order for a valid confirmation to the downside to fill in price inefficiency, we need to break below this swing low. So that would mean that price will look something like this before finding some level of support or range of support before seeing a continuation to the upside. Again, this key levels that or ranges that we've mapped out is super important. As we can see with past price history, we can see how prices reacted off of these zones. So that forms our key sort of structural support from that perspective to look at for the continuation for the move ahead. Now, let's move on to Link as well. Link at this point in time, we can see a bit of also a strange sort of choppy accumulation sort of zone here. But what we want to see for a bullish scenario, we want to see ideally that price breaks above these levels around about the $35 level. Now, in order to confirm the build up for that, we need to build our story around how price moves. And in order to do so, we've mapped out key levels that prices reacted to in the past to help you build your story. So the first zone that we want to see price breakthrough to start the process of a bullish scenario is the $27.50 level or range, where we want to break above, close above, pull back into or just slightly below before seeing a continuation above the $30 level. Now, once we've broken above this $30 zone, we would like to see another key zone to react off of is the $32.50. And from there, building up, break above the $35, as we can see that Link likes to react to sort of round numbers like the 30, the 35, the 40 levels, 50 levels. But also, you'll see that if you break it down on a lower time frame, your key levels, like your quarterly levels, like your $32.50, $27.50 levels, $22.50, those are the levels that Link likes to react off. Now, looking at what we can see on the downside, should we see any potential here to the downside, would be these $22.50 as well as the $15 level to fill in some price inefficiency where we found previous support. Now, looking at how price is moving, should we fail to break above the $27.50, we then would expect price to reverse and pull back either towards this wick, but ideally what we want to see is should price break down to this lower levels. If we do not react off the $22.50 before moving up higher, we could see, or we would like to see, price break through this level and close below the previous swing lows before seeing a continuation and finding some optimal buy entries around the $15 price mark, where we could then see a potential continuation to the upside as a last sort of, grabbing of orders before the big run up for Chainlink. Right, let's have a look at Bitcoin Cash. Now, Bitcoin Cash is the sort of slow mover of the Bitcoin family. It's always the last one to move, but when it moves strong. Now, what we've seen in the past, what's it been, almost 4 years looking at Bitcoin Cash, and studying it quite extensively, we can see that Bitcoin Cash likes to move in $50 to $100 sort of increments, and it moves quite easily it can easily move $100 within one particular candle. Now, what we've got here as well is we can see this sort of volatility in the market as well, forming some nice levels in the ranges of support. And we can see that if we draw a sort of just a simple trend line from here, we can see that price is starting to build up and supporting this trend line here. Now, with that said, looking at the bullish scenario, what we would like to see is for Bitcoin Cash to break above the $725 level, followed by a pullback, whether that will be slightly below before the continuation or at that level or slightly above before seeing a continuation. That will only 100% know once price is formed and we've seen a candle close at the various levels. Now, keeping in mind that the reason why we've chosen this $725 level is because it is a very key significant level in the past, and it's always reacted quite strongly once it's broken above the $600 level to sort of react more of these levels. As we can see, there's bigger price moves breaking normally sort of above that sort of range. Now, from there, we would like to see a continuation. We've highlighted the $800 level as the next sort of key region for price to react off, having a potential pullback from here, correcting, and then continuing sort of up to the upside. Now, looking at the next jump up, which is a $200 jump, the reason why there's obviously such a big jump, again, look at how clean this price action is on the left. Now, the $1,000 level being also a key psychological round number level, this could be a major level where we could expect a much bigger retracement back to the 800 level or slightly above it, maybe 825 to 850 level. It all depends on what the psychology is and the state of the market at this present time, as well as what Bitcoin does. Now, from here, if we are respecting sort of the bullish structure, we can then see a push up higher into the sort of high region as we build up to take out the previous all-time highs. Looking at the sort of, call it the corrective or the last accumulation, last line of defense scenario, what we would want to see is, should price fail to break above the $725 level, followed by a continuation to the downside, breaking this trend line as well as this swing low, we can anticipate prices moving sort of from the $575 level into the $525 level, as well as potentially the $500 level. We've also seen in the past that this sort of zone or region is quite popular for Bitcoin Cash to always retrace to before having explosive moves to the upside. So we would want to see, if we see these levels, we would be wanting to obviously add to our positions for the sort of next bull run up for Bitcoin Cash. Moving on to ALGO. Now, ALGO's got a very similar sort of algorithmic movements to MATIC in the sense of the key zones that it reacts to, which is quite interesting to see how it moves and how it responds to these key quarterly and psychological levels. Now, what we've seen in the past few weeks is, and months, we've seen this sort of nice sort of wedge formation where the commercials have ramped up price to obviously take out any early sellers that was resting here, all the liquidity resting above here, the buy side liquidity, before pushing price back down for the early sort of breakout traders and that, trapping those traders and obviously coming back to reaccumulate their unfulfilled orders for such a big push. And now currently we are seeing that the price is pushing up, trying to break the $1.87 sort of range, where we would want to see price break and close above this level as a first sign of strength before seeing a pullback and a continuation to the upside to break through our key zones and ultimately breaking the all-time high for a continuation to the upside. Looking at the bearish scenario for reaccumulating of our positions and adding to our positions, we would want to see that if price fails to break above the $1.87 level and it closes below this level, we are expecting price to then break this swing low here to see a continuation either to the $1.5 level, which is a key sort of support level. And should we then break below this level for whatever reason, maybe due to Bitcoin's deeper retracements, then we can anticipate a price movement into the $1.22 level, where we would be really wanting to add positions as an optimal sort of buying opportunity for the long continuation to the upside, as we can see a lot of potential for this project still. So that would be ALGO. So let's have a look at Mana. So Mana being obviously one of the key projects with the metaverse, as we see progression and a race to build the metaverse. So what we've noticed in the past, and we can see that Mana has really moved high into, and quite fast and aggressively into, since October, to the sort of $5.90 range. Now what we also can see is that Mana likes to react off of key psychological levels, the round numbers, the $1, the $2, the $3, etc., etc. What we also notice is that Mana likes to balance its pricing. Now what does that mean? Now what that means is, if we look at these wicks that we can see clearly here, we can see that they've balanced out sort of any price inefficiency that's been caused by these impulse moves. And that act as sort of support levels, if we look at it from a fractal point of view, but also from a sort of lower time frame perspective, where these levels are finding support. Now, what we want to see at the current price level is we want to see two scenarios. We either want to see that price closes above the $4.50 level, followed by breaking through the $5 level, having a pullback correction move before seeing a continuation up to the $6, $7, and $8 price points that we've mapped out in the sort of bigger time frame. Now, should we find that price fails to be above, or not break above, but stay above the $4.50 level with a candle body close, we can expect maybe even a slight pullback into just to the $5 region or sub $5 region before seeing a continuation to the downside to fill in any left unfulfilled orders or inefficiency in price. Now, should we then fail to break above the $5 level, we want to see a breakdown, taking out the previous swing low, followed by a correction, and then as well forming a continuation to the downside to fill maybe some unfulfilled orders to the downside. Now, keeping in mind that some of the key projects involved with the metaverse, we might not see a pullback straight away. However, we have outlined the regions that we see as key regions of interest should Bitcoin retrace and pull back the alts lower down. Because keeping in mind that if Bitcoin retraces, whatever Bitcoin's retracement is, the alts generally tend to pull back an additional 15 to 20% more. So with that said, that would be my take on Mana, and we can see that within this week, let's see what price is done closer to the end of the week, keeping in mind that we will be doing an update on Wednesday to give you guys so more relevant news on where the market is at that present time. So for now, that would be us. Thanks for watching, and if you like our analysis and our reports, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you for watching.